Welcome to Journey Now, a podcast about following Jesus that takes on serious issues without ever taking itself too seriously. Each week, the pastors, staff, and friends of Journey Church in Brentwood, Tennessee, gather to catch up, share life together, and laugh a little. Okay, a lot. Maybe too much. But along the way, they also explore what it really means to bring heaven to earth, share Jesus' hospitality, and live cross-shaped lives. Part babble, part Bible, and occasionally even thoughtful and entertaining, this is Journey Now.
Are we good now? Okay. Welcome to another Journey Now podcast. Here we go. We've tried this twice, so here we go. Three times the charm?
Yeah.
Okay. And how are you today, Mike?
Awesome.
You have an adventure in front of you.
I do.
Yes.
Yeah,
You're going to take a 12-hour trip. No, I'm sorry, a 6-hour trip, which will turn into 12 hours.
Are you going to drive it there and back all in one day today?
We'll see. We'll see how I'm feeling.
It is a glorious day.
A glorious day.
Because
gonna go
your
visit my
son's
son.
hard work has come to fruition of a moment that you get to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I get to go watch him play. So he doesn't know I'm coming. So I'm glad we're not releasing this.
He plays
today,
soccer
momentarily. Wright State University.
Wright State University. And they're playing who?
Eastern Illinois.
Do they post this or stream this somewhere?
They normally do. They're not. So that was the origin of the idea.
Are you going to iPhone film it and
for
send it to
Justy
us?
Bear? No, we're going to FaceTime.
Oh,
Okay.
smart.
So
All
Justy
right.
Bear and Sethi can
And
watch.
what time's the game?
It is 7:00 Ohio time, so
Okay.
that's an hour ahead, and then we'll see. I mean, Big Nate, we got a Mexican spot we like up there.
Oh, yeah.
So
You should probably eat there.
Is that like a Ohio
known
Mexican
for it.
spot? What are we talking about here?
No,
Oh, boy.
dude,
Here we go.
no.
I'm just.
Rob has been, I think we need to have an intervention.
Oh gosh.
Okay, tell us.
Tell me why.
Because I mean, normally I enjoy the exchanges of memes and TikTok reels and things like that because we share the same angst. But actually today I'm worried.
Wow. Oh,
I'm worried that you're
this is a meme
over-consuming.
frontation.
I might be.
I'm
I might
afraid
be.
that you're over-consuming
We're gonna do this now.
some
Okay.
news.
All right.
I guess
So-
we're doing it now. What are we over consuming? Memes?
Newsworthy things
Newsworthy things.
that show up
I'm pretty informed.
on our social media reels.
Oh,
Yeah.
Pretty
okay.
informed.
So
Specifically around Mexican food.
I was gonna say so.
Well, that makes sense,
Yeah.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Wow.
See?
I could say Pastor Gonzalez.
Please don't ever say that.
Hey, Pastor Gonzalez.
Feels like I'm in charge of the Spanish ministry.
we have a Spanish-speaking church.
Which you would be terrible at because you don't speak Spanish.
That's the funny part.
Oh.
I'd be speaking in tongues.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop consuming the news.
So what we connect the Mexican food with the Rob's
I mean,
consumption
I
and the
just
carefree
feel like,
Christian.
he's bringing up Ohio. He's
Oh, is
like,
that what okay.
you know,
no, I
he's
just-
feeling angsty, and I'm just saying.
Oh, that's not even what
That's
I
all
meant.
we're going to talk about because
That's not even what I meant.
because we have to be
There's a lot going on in Ohio these days.
Oh my
well
gosh.
behaved on this podcast.
That's not even what I meant.
Okay, change the subject.
All right, behave.
So funny.
So speaking of behavior,
Yeah.
we just finished a series of conversations, right?
We did,
Yeah.
yes.
Around political theology.
Called Misfits.
Yep. And God bless us, everyone. We made it.
Yes.
Yep.
And we did it.
Yes.
And no one threw anything, as far as we know.
Yeah, and now we're trying to put it into practice.
And now, yes, Rob.
Oh gosh. Is that why I'm here?
Yes. We're like, who really needs to revisit this? Rob.
Where is Timmons, anyways? In Ohio?
Timmons.
Sorry.
Songwriter.
Oh, that's
Songwriters Retreat.
Oh, that's right.
Which, if you're
Songwriters
listening to this on Thursday,
Yeah.
on Sunday evening, you should come to Journey, and there's going to be
Song
like a
share.
writers round
Yeah, song
for
share.
all the songs that they write this week.
We're doing that on Sunday
It's
night?
called a song share.
That's usually what they call
Yeah,
it.
song share.
I thought
Brad?
that was something on the computer.
Brad, I expect to see you.
Yeah, Sunday evening at Journey.
Awesome. That's
yeah,
fun.
it'll
What
be
time?
really fun.
Yeah.
I don't know.
One of the coolest things that Tim does in our communities, we just have so many talented music folks, not surprising, and we try to write songs around, and by we I mean them. Around the themes of some of the things we're exploring, because I think a lot of us realize that there is a certain deficiency among American worship music around themes like lament or justice or some of the realities we were even talking about.
Or the communal implications of scriptures.
Nice.
So Tim Inns does a great job.
They do.
Yeah. So anyway, but we got, because I don't know if it was specific to this week or just because we were wrapping up, we got a ton of questions.
Yeah, really good questions.
Let's just dive in.
I want to
Let's dive in the deep
this
end.
is a really good one, and I'm bringing it up, Mike, because I think you can answer this.
All right.
So,
well, no pressure.
Yeah. So this is from a dad of a kiddo with special needs. He says, I've been thrown into the deep end of reorienting myself around societal norms and expectations.
Wow.
However, as I try to embody these changes and try to bring about these changes in my own immediate family, it's interpreted as succumbing to, quote, wokeness and, quote, non-Christian agendas. How do I go about helping my own family who claim to follow Christ realize that fighting for the least of these is more important than maintaining our own safety, security, and privilege?
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And it seems like, Suzie, we got a lot of questions around this kind of theme. Like, fine, let's let the world be the world.
Yeah.
But what about Christians who are not behaving in ways that are congruent with the Sermon on the Mount in the name of partisan politics?
Yeah.
Oh, man, such a great question. And I don't know how...
Which, by the way, we're all guilty of. I just want to say, at times.
Well, Rob in particular.
Clearly. Clearly.
But yes.
Yeah.
I mean, this should be an all-skate, because this is all something we're wrestling
Yeah, but
with.
I want you to respond to this in particular because you share the heart of this dad.
Yes, I mean that is the tendency that we have on every side of the political spectrum to just label things so we don't have to think about them is one of our laziest, most un-Jesus-like impulses. So I can just say that person's liberal and I don't have to listen. I don't have to show hospitality. I don't have to listen for nuance or ask questions. I don't have to be curious. I can just sort of write them off. It takes two to tango. And so if there are folks who are in your life who, the only thing I know to do is to embody the alternative and be curious about what the other person thinks and why they think it. There's no other maneuver that I know that can win people over that doesn't express an un-Jesus-like attitude of power over, like, I'm the right one, you're the wrong one, you really need to adjust to me. So what I do in situations imperfectly is I take woke out of it. And I would say about Seth, my child who has special needs, what should the posture of the church be to Seth Erre? Just biblically. What do you think it is? Have them name whatever those things are.
Yeah.
And then say, okay, I think that posture that we would all agree towards, my son and whatever this individual's child is, that posture is simply, it should be extended to all the people who don't have seats at the cultural table because they're not they're not in the majority.
So someone responds to you and says, well, Seth should be treated just like everyone else is, and he should be seen as fully human like everyone else is. Mike, I don't know what you're so worried about, because in the eyes of God, we're all the same. Right. And to some degree, I would totally agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I would also say that for Seth to be seen as fully human means taking into account his uniquely human needs. So there's an extra sort of attention. And again, to just label that woke, I understand where some of this does get twisted in really unbiblical and unhelpful ways. I totally get that. And we're not talking about identity politics beyond or the agenda that's represented by some who really do want to push an anti-human sort of agenda into the world.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is the attentiveness of the church community that Paul, man, you see it everywhere. You see it in Jesus, and then you see it all in Paul's teaching in the church, where those who are by the world defined as less than receive special attention. James even says this: for the rich, mourn your high position. Yeah. For the poor, celebrate your low position. What he's saying there is when you come into the church, the gospel lowers those who think themselves much in the world, and it raises those who see themselves as little in the world, so that we all participate in siblingship. Yeah. So if woke means participating in that dynamic, then I'm glad to be woke. But I don't think that's what woke means, and I don't think that is at all something that would be considered a partisan move. I think that is the heart of the gospel that you see in Jesus. What do you guys think?
But that doesn't seem fair, is what people would say. That doesn't seem, because what's happened is people have been gaslit. Oh, no, that's the wrong word. People they feel damaged as white people in a world that says that because you're white you have privilege, or in a world that says because you're white you have this or you have that.
Well, and also on the flip side of that, there's people saying that you're, as a white person, you're going to be replaced by everybody else.
Right. So
there's a threat.
So there is a threat. There is also this fear that has been instilled in people. There has been, and they're responding out of these fears. They look around and they go, well, I lose my job to that person, or I'll lose my job to that person, or because I'm rich, I have to apologize, or because I've made it in this world. And what has given that voice is the political realm has given that a louder voice. And when they hear anything that comes up against that, anything, whether it's the gospel, whether it's Jesus's words or Paul's words or anybody's words, they go, foul. That's wrong. You can't say that. And the reality is that the gospel does equalize everybody, and we don't like that. We don't like that. And that voice that is inside people that says this isn't fair. I've earned my spot. I've earned, whether that's just a little bit above somebody else. I've earned that spot. You can't tell me they're equal with me. Jesus can. Jesus can tell you that. The gospel tells you that. And I think that's the real struggle. The real struggle is I don't want to give up my position. I have a position and I don't want to give it up. And if I'm in the place where I'm, and the reality is I can compare myself to somebody somewhere and find myself ahead, above, better than, and I don't want to embrace a gospel that says, no, you're actually equals.
Well, speaking of that, this is another great question. Hierarchy. It's so tempting in the world, and as discussed, happens in the church as well. I'm wondering, how can we learn and grow in wisdom, better ourselves, be productive, and do good, but not become prideful as we move up the pyramid, often by nature of roles we play? How do we manage this better as we do these good things, but keep it in check and perspective? Any thoughts to share, or would be curious to hear that explored more with the team? Thank you.
Awesome.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Rob?
I think this is where healthy shame comes in. It's a term that I learned over the last couple of years, where healthy shame helps us understand our humanity and our limitations. I think sometimes we forget that we have limitations as humans, as Americans, as people. So having an element of healthy shame, I think, is really important. Understand that, like, I need people. I need something outside of myself. I think that's really important individually. I think from a cultural standpoint, I think it's, if you're the person in charge and you're leading a place that is, and creating an environment where ego, pride, status is all a part of it, I don't know how you not do that if you're a part of the culture. Like, if this was a place to where, like, that was a thing, it would be a thing, I think, for all of us. So I don't know. That's the part for me that I'm like, the seat that I sit in.
Is it like a game you play?
What?
Like, if you're in that environment, you have to play the game?
Kind of. I feel like it's like, yeah, I think there's an element of this where, like, if people around you are doing something, whether correctly or incorrectly, it's hard to do the opposite when everybody around you is going in one direction. So I think if we create a culture specifically here in our churches or our businesses where that's first and foremost like the priority, as the individual, I would say it's probably really hard to be counterculture. Most people just leave.
You can't do it alone.
Yeah.
Suze, what do you think?
I think that, well, like I said, it can't be done alone because you need people in your life who see in your life who can hold you to a standard of humility. So, I mean, I think that, creating a culture of mutuality, whether we're talking about a church or a home or a business or any kind of community setting where, we respect one another, but also like if someone seems like they're, enjoying the top of the pyramid in an unhealthy way, that can be like openly talked about. And, it's hard. Yeah. But I think that's, I don't know. I feel like for me in my life, I have people who keep my feet on the ground. And that's really important.
Yeah.
I think it's important to know too, like we all are on top of some pyramid. Like I think that's something that gets missed sometimes. I was talking with a friend of mine. We were talking about college stuff and specifically privilege. And like part of his wrestle, he's like, man, there was a privilege to even like not having enough money because I got to go to college for free where my friend who made a little bit more didn't.
Yeah.
Right. But we were both still on the lower end of the spectrum when it comes to finances. So just understanding that like we all have an element of privilege and we all are on some form of a pyramid.
Yeah, because there's also like the question of leadership. Like leadership is necessary still.
Yeah.
So, you can look at that from a pyramid standpoint, but how you lead and where you lead from are like important things to consider, and I think sometimes we come into spaces wanting the pyramid because there's something in all of us that wants a king. We want to follow a king. And so we look for the person, we look to the person on the platform, we look to the celebrity, we look to the most influential person, we look for the person who has the most power. Like we've kind of all been shaped that way.
Conditioned.
Yeah. And in like, in a church, you have to have some element of leadership because there's responsibility involved and there's vision and all that kind of stuff. But the way you hold that responsibility and the way you hold the vision and the way you hold your position or whatever. And I'm not just talking about staff members. I mean, volunteers also.
Sure.
Like we've all been in churches where the volunteers have actually been the most influential people,
For sure.
Like there's a way to lead that's not power over. And that's something we talk about all the time.
Yeah. Mike, why did you introduce the pyramid to your message?
We did Rome was a very stratified, hierarchical society where there was something called the cursus honorum, which was the course of honor, where among certain classes there was a series of offices that would accrue honor. So as an honor shame culture, Rome just embodied the social stigma of accruing dishonor and the social recognition of accruing honor. And so you get it embodied in a visual like a pyramid, which perfectly encapsulates, how much the 5% of the Roman elite sat over the 95% of not the common people, the freed men and women, and then the slaves. And so when Paul talks about the descent of Jesus in the incarnation and crucifixion, he's using the language of the cursus honorum, but he's flipping it on its head so that Jesus chooses and goes to willingly the place of lowest dishonor, not just being a human, and not just being a slave who is obedient, but dying and then death on a cross. So it's this. So I wanted to try to, because Paul's audience would have, picked up on it. Yeah. is that it's the inverse.
Was it possible within that culture to move in and among those levels?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you could, if you were wealthy, you could buy your way into higher levels, but there was always a stigma attached. So in Roman history, there's always an old money, new family, old family distinction that was made even among the wealthy. Or military service could sometimes bump you up. Totally.
Still is culturally still there.
Yeah. So when Paul is saying, hey, your citizenship is in heaven, Roman citizens, and here's what that looks like, you just could not, as we talked about, you could not have picked a more poignant, compelling countercultural example than the example of Jesus, who was in very nature God, who descended and then was exalted because he descended.
Yeah. So clawing to the top of the pyramid culturally for us and what is the cost to claw up?
Yeah.
Is it money? Or is it relationship? What is it?
The cost that I pay
Your soul.
willingly. Yeah. Which do you mean, positively or negatively? Like the cost could
She
be,
heard it negatively.
Yeah,
I don't know how you heard it.
but yeah, I mean, so if you take church world, then you're very much rewarded for pretending. Right? So I can't admit doubt, struggle.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it can cost, we've seen it cost people their families and their jobs and relationships because they have to maintain the facade of something that they're not able to live up to.
Okay, so what's the cost of vulnerability then?
People see you sometimes in a negative light.
Yeah, you don't always accrue the kind of recognition.
And people judge you based off of what you share sometimes.
Yeah.
Negatively or positively.
Yeah.
You can be disqualified.
Yes. That's what I was going to say. You can move down that pyramid pretty fast.
Yeah.
In the church world,
Yeah. I have seen it done well on very few occasions when somebody has chosen to be vulnerable and has been honest about what has occurred
frailties
in their life.
Yeah,
but not just, the thing that everybody focuses on, but all the things in their life for the many years before that have shaped them and caused them to do the thing that actually got them in trouble.
Yeah.
And when they have been able to, truly name that and take responsibility for that.
Yeah.
And then pursue healing for that in a community that is for that person.
Yeah.
And for Christ in that person. I have seen it very seldomly. I've seen it, but it has borne much fruit in those that I've seen.
So I've been dwelling on the pyramid a little bit, but so in true looking at the church, then, does the gospel eradicate a pyramid? Does the pyramid go away and there isn't?
That's a great question.
Isn't a pyramid, and the gospel says it's flat? Or is the pyramid still there and we meet in the middle? Because what you described earlier was a person at the top of the pyramid gets lowered, and the person at the bottom of the pyramid gets
only in
you
the
understand what I'm asking?
Yes.
Okay.
So the judgments that result in pyramids are eradicated.
Oh.
Or should be.
Yeah. Right. So you are slave or free, Jew or Gentile, male or female, and those have certain cultural, worldly associations attached to them.
Yeah.
In the church, those are rendered, or should be rendered, irrelevant next to we're all saved by grace through our trust in Jesus. So the hierarchy, there is a hierarchy of responsibility. There's not a hierarchy of authority.
right.
So in the church,
really good.
you have a hierarchy of responsibility. The elders are responsible for, but they're not more important than, more gifted than, more significant than. They just carry a different level of responsibility.
Yes.
So when you're a pastor of a church, you're looking at the church with the whole in view rather than just a certain area of responsibility or one section that you may like or not like. So that's where the pyramid comes in, but it's inverted. so that the one at the bottom of the pyramid is the one who is caring about the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
the
that's
pyramid kind of sits on that.
correct.
Yeah.
So there are a few people in our church who are responsible for the alignment and the fiduciary, pragmatic organizational responsibilities and the spiritual health
and the care
of the church.
Of the
Absolutely.
community.
Right.
Sometimes protection of the community.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the way Paul and Jesus conceive of those roles is that those are the slaves in Christ. That they're the ones who carry the burden of the rest of the pyramid.
Well, he introduces himself as a slave.
Well, that was part of how we are to, Jesus will give the example of just eschewing titles. Like we just don't do titles in the kingdom. Don't call anyone rabbi, father, teacher. You have one of those already. Paul will Paul will deliberately choose to offend people by whether it's manual labor or calling himself a slave, but he will choose intentionally the place of lowest social honor, so that nobody is attracted. And this gets him in trouble. This limits his effectiveness in Corinth, because super apostles show up and they've got credentials and they're better speakers and whatever, and Paul has to defend his apostleship, but he does it. They have book deals. They speak at conferences.
Right.
Totally.
But there, in 1 Corinthians, he talks about the body, but he talks about it in terms of where the parts that are not presentable.
See, there you go. That's the equality the gospel brings. Keep going. That's so good.
Not presentable are elevated, are treated with special care, are by the ones that are are meant to care for. And his illustration of the body blows apart hierarchical church.
Are you going to be able to keep that pyramid in front of us when we go through Ephesians?
We'll just start with it every week.
It's a beautiful graphic.
It is a beautiful
really
graphic
artwork.
But Ephesians is actually about that.
Yeah.
So that's a great
especially when you
idea.
get in household orders and
Totally.
Anyway, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ.
Okay, one last question, because this is
Suzie.
extremely practical.
Okay,
love it.
Practical.
If something I'm passionate about is affordable physical health care and mental health care, how can I begin to live that out in the church?
Say it again.
One more time.
Yeah.
If something I'm passionate about is affordable physical health care and mental health care,
That's what she's passionate about.
how can I begin to live that out in the church? Because you said, when you think about things like big things that are out there in the world, you think about us, this little community that we are all a part of, that we are all called to be faithful to and with. How do you live that out?
Yeah.
Because that's a big thing.
Absolutely. Tell them about the podcast. That's one of the ways we highlight.
Journey on My Mind. Yeah, we
say more about that.
We talk about the balance between mental health, psychology, spiritual health, and how they meet in a place oftentimes that's just missed. And I think it brings a great balance to spiritual development of the mind and the soul. So if you get a chance to listen to that, Journey on My Mind.
So if I'm someone who's part of this community that isn't on the podcast, I'm not involved in the podcast at all.
Mm-hmm.
How do I live this out?
How do I live mental health out?
How do I live my passion?
Or the value of mental health?
How do I live out and contribute to, in a practical way, my passion for affordable health care?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I really care about this.
Yeah.
But I can't change legislation.
Yeah.
So what can I do?
Yeah.
What can I be a part of?
There actually is a lot of affordable healthcare out there. It is to educate yourself. Actually, Rob has educated himself on a lot of this.
Social media will do it for you. No,
you have.
I'm joking.
You know more about it than a lot of people I know, for going to the market and being able to do it in a way that, because you do it every year. You and Sam are all about
I'm following now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was thinking more in the terms of therapy.
But they said healthcare.
Yeah.
And
a part of that is just, it's the whole, how do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time? It's, if we are the witness as the local church, part of what I'm realizing is that part of my witness is to my neighbors around me.
Yes.
Right? In proximity around me. And so whether that's helping a friend get registered for...
Which you did the other day.
Whether it's telling somebody about the refuge center or plumb line or whatever it is, right? Like, I think if...
And also contributing to those.
Yeah, like if that's
refuge centers, a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Sponsoring. That's
like
good.
Saying somebody like, I'll pay for your counseling. I think that's important.
But being resourceful and helping people.
Yeah, and understanding that like affecting, again, the people around us is part of being the church and being the witness.
Right.
Like it doesn't have to be this massive, grand,
Right. But it's part of the reason why we've partnered with the Refuge Center. They have this sliding scale and we can help people that way. But it's practically stepping into this idea of what do I need to know to help the people around me find affordable health care. It's part of the climate and culture of a capitalistic society that you step into this because it's a capitalistic idea that we're going to open the market. Well, then you got to understand the market.
Yeah.
You got to understand the market. It's the same thing with retirement. It's the same thing with finances. It's the same thing with those things. There's people that could be passionate not just about that, but helping people manage their money.
I would become really resourceful. I would be very aware of all the resources out there and then try and give that to people.
Right.
If that was like what I was interested in, I would learn how many organizations out there are providing affordable health care,
Mercy
mental
Community
health care.
Plug for them.
And then just being a resource to people.
Right.
I think it's really impactful and beneficial.
The Room in the Inn has a lot of resources for people like that, and we that need affordable health care. Not just people that are unhoused, but there's an education piece to Room in the Inn. I don't know how much. Yeah. Anyway.
There is.
I know.
Yeah.
And you can participate in that. You can actually sit and teach classes on how to do this.
Same with GraceWorks.
Same with GraceWorks. So there are organizations that would love to have people that are passionate about this step in and go, these are the resources available to you. Let me help you find them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we nailed it. I think we got
no more
to
memes.
No more
memes. We started off really rocky.
Questions, and we got through it.
And Mike's going to Ohio.
We have a pyramid. We're gonna disassemble every week, and
it's
gonna be awesome.
It is.
Thanks. If you want to be a part of our pyramid scheme.
Thanks,
See
Rob.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
See.
Yes, there it is. There it is.
Too far?
Yeah. Just one step too far.
I'll see you guys in a year.
Yeah. See you on your downline. All right. Y'all have a great week.
Y'all.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Journey Now. If for some bizarre reason you liked it, help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing it on your socials. Journey Now is a production of Journey Church in Brentwood, Tennessee. Edwin Rivera III produces the show and fixes all the guest slurping, gum chewing, coughing, and other annoying sounds. Randy Hansen provides technical assistance, even though he denies it. Grant Opperman edits Journey Now and intervenes when necessary to tell the crew that you can't say that. Special shout out to dear listener Brad Erie and dear YouTube watcher Seth Erie. If there's anyone else who makes it through each week, we're so sorry, and thanks to you too.